When you upgrade a city's power grid, you don't just tear out all the underground copper wiring while everyone is upstairs making breakfast.
Right, yeah. That would be disaster.
Exactly. You build parallel systems, you test them in isolation, and you transition really slowly. But looking at the this March 24th, 2026 AI intelligence report, we're basically seeing the technological equivalent of just ripping out the foundation, the plumbing, the structural steel of the global economy, all while billions of people are actively sitting in the living room.
It is. I mean, it's an incredibly aggressive, entirely nonlinear infrastructure overhaul.
Yeah.
And, today's deep dive into this curated executive report, it's really about tracing a very specific, undeniable transition. We're mapping how AI is moving away from being this discrete software application.
Like a chatbot or whatever.
Right, like a clever little chatbot you open in a browser tab. Moving from that to becoming the literal substrate of how data moves, how multinational corporations function, and even how nation-states defend themselves.
And you, listening to this right now, you are sitting inside that exact skyscraper as the steel gets swapped out. I mean, the sheer velocity of capital and policy colliding in this document is, well, it's honestly sobering.
Definitely.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the bedrock layer. The report heavily details what's happening at the enterprise infrastructure level, right?
Yeah.
So Microsoft is officially launching the M365 E7 tier. Now, for anyone who doesn't, spend their week auditing corporate software licensing.
Which is most people, thankfully.
Right. Microsoft hasn't rolled out a fundamentally new top-level enterprise tier in over a decade. And they are specifically using this E7 tier to bundle Copilot and Agent 365 governance.
And that 10-year timeline is, it's the ultimate signal here, because enterprise IT is inherently conservative by design, right? Chief information officers, they optimize for uptime.
Right. Stability.
Exactly. Stability, not novelty. They hate novelty. So for Microsoft to force a migration to an entirely new structural tier, it means the baseline definition of what actually constitutes work has fundamentally changed.
Wow.
Yeah. They're basically acknowledging that governing AI agents is now as mission critical as, say, governing email servers was back in 2010.
But to actually run those autonomous agents across, like, a Fortune 500 company, you need massively upgraded pipes.
Which brings us to the next point in the report, right? The strategic partnership bringing OpenAI's frontier platform natively to AWS.
Yep.
And this isn't just about putting a new app in a cloud store. Amazon is providing hyperscaler-level distribution here.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the physical reality of that distribution. Because the computing demands of enterprise-grade custom AI models, they require planetary scale infrastructure.
Yeah.
Amazon is providing the raw thermal managed data centers, while OpenAI is providing the cognitive engine. But to me, the most revealing infrastructure update in this entire report isn't actually from Microsoft or Amazon.
Really? Who is it from?
It's from Kubernetes.
Okay, let's ground that term for a second for the listener. Kubernetes is essentially the air traffic control system for modern software.
It dictates how different pieces of a cloud application talk to each other. It routes traffic across thousands of servers seamlessly. And they just launched an AI Gateway Working Group to develop new networking standards specifically for AI workloads.
Right. And historically, that air traffic control system was managing highly predictable data. It was routing traditional database queries or fetching static images, things like that.
Predictable stuff.
Very predictable. But AI workloads are entirely different beasts. They aren't static files. They are these massive, persistent streams of context and probability.
Yeah.
So the fact that Kubernetes is building standardized networking infrastructure specifically for AI means the industry has realized you simply cannot force generative AI traffic through traditional software pipes.
The plumbing itself has to become intelligent.
Exactly.
So we have developers demanding new foundational rules for AI data flow, hyperscalers like Amazon building the global distribution network, and Microsoft selling the institutional governance wrapper. We are permanently bolting AI to the global economy's floorboards here.
We really are.
But, and this is where my concern spikes, bolting a highly unpredictable, probabilistic system into your core network feels like a massive unforced error. You can't just unleash autonomous agents into a corporate environment without them eventually, hallucinating and deleting the payroll database.
Right. And that tension, that is the defining engineering bottleneck of 2026. Which brings us to a rapid escalation documented in the report regarding the agentic era.
Okay.
We have officially crossed the threshold from AI systems that generate text for a human to read into autonomous systems designed to execute complex, multi-step actions on their own.
And the capabilities documented here are just staggering. Like Anthropic just released something called Claude Code Review.
Yeah.
And this is not a glorified spell check or some autocomplete tool. They are deploying AI agents to actively review developers' pull requests.
Which is huge.
It really is. Meaning the AI is acting as an automated senior engineer, independently checking and approving a junior engineer's code before it gets merged into a live public-facing product.
And the counter-move in the market was immediate. The report notes that OpenAI shipped an update to Codex that actively hunts for and patches security vulnerabilities within those exact same code bases.
Just continuously scanning.
Right, continuously scanning without even being prompted.
Wow. And add in the report's note on the new ChatGPT 5.4 release, early testers are explicitly stating it, quote, uses your PC better than you.
Yeah, that quote is wild.
But let's pause and look at the physical mechanics of that claim. An AI doesn't have hands, right? For an agent to literally use your PC better than you do, it requires deep system-level API access to your operating system. It needs the authority to read your screen, move your cursor, open internal files, and execute command line functions.
It is operating at the kernel level. It's embedded in the absolute deepest layer of the machine's logic.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if ChatGPT 5.4 has kernel-level control over a machine, and Claude is automatically approving software updates, and Codex is autonomously hunting vulnerabilities, aren't we just building a closed-loop system of automated failure?
It definitely looks like that from the outside.
Right. Like if one AI writes the code, another AI reviews it, and a third secures it, human oversight is entirely structurally removed. We are trusting probabilistic math to govern probabilistic math. That just sounds like a recipe for a silent, catastrophic, cascading failure.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, the enterprise world shares that exact panic.
Yeah.
You cannot have an AI system grading its own homework, especially when it possesses the keys to institutional infrastructure.
Yeah, obviously.
Which is why the report highlights this highly specific, very necessary technical pivot from the AWS machine learning team. They've detailed a framework called Secure AI Agents with Policy in Amazon Bedrock Agent Core.
Okay, secure AI agents with policy and agent core. That sounds like they are basically building a digital Faraday cage around the AI's reasoning engine. Is that an accurate way to look at it?
That is the perfect architectural analogy. Amazon is constructing what the industry calls a deterministic enforcement layer. And to understand why this is revolutionary, you have to remember how large language models actually function at their core.
Right.
They are probabilistic. They mathematically calculate the next most likely token. That makes them highly fluid, adaptable, and creative, which, is brilliant for drafting a marketing strategy, but absolutely terrifying for network security.
Because you do not want your firewall to be creative. You want it to be an absolute unmoving brick wall.
Precisely. So Bedrock Agent Core physically separates the thinking from the enforcing. The deterministic layer is hard-coded. It utilizes rigid, non-negotiable if-then logic that sits entirely outside the neural network's architecture.
Oh, I see.
So if the deterministic policy dictates an agent cannot export a file larger than 10 megabytes to an external IP address, it does not matter how brilliantly the probabilistic AI reasons, or if a user tries to socially engineer the agent with some clever prompt.
The cage holds.
Exactly. The deterministic layer simply severs the action. It functions as an unbreakable physical governor on the cognitive engine.
So you grant the AI incredible cognitive power to analyze and act, but you lock its hands inside a cage of traditional rigid code. That makes sense. That mathematically solves the corporate IT problem.
It does.
But as we see in the report, these agents aren't just being used to manage internal corporate memos anymore. They're being wired directly into massive external data streams. The report mentions Messari launching BY402-enabled API endpoints specifically designed for AI agents to pull institutional-grade crypto and financial intelligence.
Right, and an API endpoint is essentially a direct digital pipeline. So Messari is constructing specialized pipelines that allow these autonomous agents to ingest massive amounts of real-time, highly complex financial intelligence without any human intermediation.
Wow. So when you combine autonomous agents capable of writing their own code, housed within these deterministic security cages, and fed by real-time institutional intelligence pipelines, the stakes immediately elevate well beyond software as a service. You are building autonomous systems that can analyze global markets and deploy software instantly. That is no longer just enterprise IT. That is a strategic defense asset.
which forces a massive geopolitical collision right at the intersection of Silicon Valley and Washington.
Yep.
And looking at the defense sector data in this report, the contrast is incredibly stark. We have OpenAI signing formal, structured agreements with the Department of War, while Anthropic is simultaneously filing multiple lawsuits against them.
Now, before we dive into this, we need to be crystal clear with you, the listener. We are strictly analyzing the facts from this intelligence report regarding these politically charged defense contracts.
Yes, we are absolutely not taking sides here.
Exactly. We aren't endorsing either the Pentagon's labels or any company's military agreements. We're just reporting the structural realities documented in the source material.
Exactly. We are just looking at the mechanics.
Yep.
And strictly looking at those supply chain mechanics detailed in the report. This fracture in the industry fundamentally alters global cyber posture.
Okay, let's map out the mechanics of that fracture then. On one side, we have OpenAI's contract. It explicitly details safety red lines, legal liability protections, and exactly how their systems will be physically deployed inside highly classified, air-gapped, secure environments.
Right.
So they are systematically adapting their foundational models to live permanently inside the Pentagon's walled gardens.
And on the exact opposite side of that strategic spectrum, you have Anthropic fighting a decision by the Pentagon to officially label their company a supply chain risk.
Right. Let's explain how that label actually operates in the real world. Because being designated a supply chain risk by the Pentagon, that's not just a bad PR day for a tech company, right? How does that practically legally impact their ability to function?
It acts as a legal contagion.
Okay.
This raises an important question about how tech is procured now. If the Department of War flags a foundational model as a supply chain risk, it obviously legally precludes that model from being utilized in direct military applications. But the blast radius goes so much further than that.
How?
Every major defense contractor, Boeing, Lockheed, Raytheon, they must immediately audit and purge that technology from their internal systems to maintain their government security clearances.
Oh, wow. And then the financial institutions that fund those defense contractors and the logistics companies that ship their parts, they all have to evaluate their own compliance exposure. It trickles all the way down to civilian infrastructure.
Exactly. The risk tolerance of a civilian enterprise is now being heavily dictated by state-level military compliance. Imagine you are an enterprise chief information officer simply trying to procure an AI tool to help your logistics team optimize shipping routes.
Right.
Suddenly, you have to launch an audit to determine whether your software vendor is legally allowed to operate under the Department of War's cyber posture guidelines.
That is wild. We are literally watching the militarization of the AI supply chain happen in real time. The ecosystem is rapidly bifurcating. Developers and capital allocators are being forced to choose. You either build for the highly classified deterministic reality of the state, or you build entirely for the open consumer market.
And this friction between closed, highly regulated state environments and the open consumer market, it creates a fascinating structural paradox.
How do you mean?
Well, because while the enterprise and defense sectors are actively locking these models down behind deterministic cages and classified firewalls, the consumer tech world is pushing AI in the exact opposite direction. They are engineering it to be entirely invisible, boundless, and hypersensory.
Right. Which brings us to the final section of this intelligence report, which focuses squarely on that consumer layer. And it's crucial we look at this because consumer technology is the ultimate forcing function for enterprise behavior.
Always has been.
The report highlights Google aggressively expanding personal intelligence across its ecosystem. So they're weaving AI natively into Chrome, Search, the Gemini mobile app, basically, so the browser anticipates your workflow before you even click.
Yeah.
But the absolute jaw-dropper in this section is NVIDIA's launch of DLSS